whatever the inquiry distills down to in the course of the next few minutes. Because I'm going to begin by mentioning monkeypox. It's not called monkeypox anymore. It's been renamed Mpox. And the World Health Organization has declared a global Mpox emergency. They've even found at least one case of it in America. And I mention this to you because it's coming soon to a Facebook group near you. All of the people who are named today or many of the people named today in a very interesting Times investigation into who sowed or where the seeds of hatred that bloomed into racist riots last week, where those seeds were sown. And many of the names that are mentioned in this article will soon or are already jumping onto the Mpox bandwagon, claiming that it is a hoax or that it's not true or that it is somehow being invented and inflated in order to, and this is where I do still get a little bit confused, in order to control the population or contribute to the Great Reset or do something about two-tier politics. Do you see what I mean? All of these nonsensical conspiracy theories oddly move as one, and the latest will be Mpox. It will be a claim that Keir Starmer is somehow responsible for the World Health Organization. In fact, the serial criminal Stephen Yaxley Lennon is already making similar claims. It's been sent this. They must have seen Keir Starmer playing his commie tactics and thought we want a piece of that. They're rolling out monkeypox again under a new name. Now, I mention that because when the Times started looking into why people joined the riots, how they could have ended up inciting violence, and what evidence there was of radicalization. I obviously didn't know yesterday when I asked you who you thought had radicalized these people in the context of our conversation about Julie Sweeney, the 53-year-old who has been sent to jail for 15 months after calling for the mosque to be blown up with the adults in it. I didn't know that this rather good article, albeit for one slightly mysterious wrinkle that we'll get onto a little later, I didn't know that this rather good article would essentially seek to answer precisely that question. Who radicalised them? Who radicalised people like Dylan Carey or Tracy Pearson? And what they discovered on the forums where that radicalisation appears to have either taken place or certainly accelerated is that the anti-vax movement and other conspiracy theories like the Great Replacement, the idea that there are actual plans in place to somehow eradicate the white population of the West and replace it with people of colour, that all of these nonsensical and deeply dangerous, but crucially widely believed nonsenses congregate in the same place. So what they have found is that the groups upon which these people were active, up to and including the one upon which Julie Sweeney posted her desire to see the mosque blown up with all the adults in it, buy into the same sort of stuff. And they'll be buying into Mpox now, because Yaxley Lennon is one of the people who is cited repeatedly in the article. That essentially people believe some of the lies that were amplified with regard to the suspect in the Southport attacks. So we'll take one person. We'll begin with one person, Dylan Carey, a 26-year-old father of one. He was at a rally organised by Yaxley Lennon 3 days before he became an active and persistent participant in the riots. At the last general election, he canvassed for the Reform Company, which Nigel Farage runs. He was photographed at the rally organised by Yaxley Lennon with an England flag around his neck, and he was accompanied by his father, Philip. And of course, on the morning of the riots, Yaxley Lennon had told his followers on X that police were, quotes, gaslighting, end quotes, the public about the suspect in the Southport attacks. His barrister said in court that he had blamed blamed his presence at the rally for his transition from a hard-working family man to sitting before Liverpool Crown Court. But as we've heard, he was neck deep in this stuff. And his father is a regular poster on Facebook of all of these conspiracy theories, such as two-tier policing, an idea heavily promoted, of course, by Yaxley Lennon and also by Nigel Farage. He has shared beliefs in the anti-vax movement and fears that globalist elites are, quote, seeking the Great Reset. He also shared false claims about the Southport attacker. And what struck me about much of this, and he will almost certainly be jumping onto the Mpox bandwagon shortly, because all of these things seem to go hand in hand. That's going to be one of the questions I ask you. That's what I meant when I talked to you earlier about not knowing what question we were going to end up with at the end of this. I didn't know whether or not that would be one of the things that interested me most, but it is. It turns out it is. It wasn't what I expected to go in on first, which is the question of what it's like to know something, to love someone. Let's be honest. What it's like to love someone who falls down these rabbit holes. Because one of the most arresting, if you pardon the pun, stories told in this article is the story of a man called John England, who is from Mansfield in Nottinghamshire, and who said that a local hotel should be targeted by, and I quote, great English men. He told police that he knew his posts were racist and that he was ashamed of them, but he thought it would have taught the hotel owners a lesson if the hotel had been burned down. And they spoke to his daughter. This is because the journalists have been sitting in the courts and they have been tracking the online activity of people who have found themselves being sentenced. And they spoke to John England's daughter, who is 20 years old. And she said, and this is where my interest in the question of what it's like to love one of these people really came from. His daughter said she had refused to befriend her father on social media because of his right-wing anti-immigration views and the amount of time he spent on Facebook. She said, whenever topics of politics came up, I always moved the subject onto something else to avoid disagreements. And I just wondered what that was like, because I don't want to sound, I really don't, well, maybe I do actually. Let me just have a little pause to think whether yes, I think I do feel sorry for some of these people. I know that's probably white privilege. If it was me that they were trying to burn alive in a hotel, or certainly the people calling for it to happen who probably would have been fairly shocked if it did happen. I don't know that that includes this guy who told police that he did want the hotel to be burned down because he thought it might teach the hotel owners a lesson. But I do find myself thinking that you can't ignore the role of radicalisation. All of these people, the stories are, I think, quite poignant. I don't want to dedicate too much of your time this morning to telling me why I'm wrong to use words like poignant or sympathy. But I do want to put it out there. I do want to be completely open with you, completely honest with you. I mean, who's worse? The hate preacher or the person that believes them? Do you know who got sent down for life the other day? You may have missed this. Anjem Chowdhury, who the British media turned into a sort of pantomime villain of Islamist extremism. And he was a tightrope walker. It was explained to me by some very clever people that I think he even did a law degree. He knew exactly, he fell off the tightrope eventually, but for years he knew exactly what he was doing, exactly where the line was between provocation and criminality. And young people whose brains were boiled by his rhetoric, I don't think are 100% responsible for where they ended up. Some of the responsibility for radicalisation must lie, mustn't it, with the radicalisers. So I don't think that many of these people who have been sent to jail in the last few days would have been sent to jail if they hadn't spent so much time on these forums, if they hadn't spent so much time being radicalised. Now, that means that people listening to this programme now have got people in their lives who they love that have been through this process. It can happen, perhaps, to anyone. You can't be sort of intellectually or socially smug about this. You can't think, well, I'd never fall for that stuff. You have people in your life who have fallen for this potpourri of dangerous conspiracy theories, starting perhaps with anti-vax. One of the characters in this article certainly began his process of radicalization during lockdown. He took a radical turn online, his online activity. This is Tyler Kay, the father of three, who was jailed for 38 months for using his social media to encourage people to set fire to all the effing hotels full of the bleeps. 710,000 people saw that post. He also, Crown Court was told that the post revealed a racist mindset, and he was also giving advice to the people that he was exhorting to go and set fire to the hotels. But they discovered that his online activity took a radical turn months into the pandemic in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests. He ended up accusing the British Olympic athlete Bianca Williams of playing the race card. A week before the Southport attack, he commented on a clip of Richard Tice, the deputy leader of Nigel Farage's latest publicity vehicle, with the words "Amen to this" after Tice described footage of a police officer kicking an Asian man in the head at Manchester Airport as reassuring. He also wrote that anyone rioting should be deported when Tice criticised police for failing to prevent unrest by a Romani family in Hare Hills in Leeds. The Facebook group, the Facebook community group upon which Julie Sweeney posted her call for the mosque to be blown up with all of the adults in it is interesting as well. Although, oddly, the print edition of the article in the Times omits this paragraph, the online edition does not, which usually means that someone on the editorial floor, someone very senior on the paper, after the article has been written, has decided to take it out. So Julie Sweeney, the primary carer for her husband, lived a sheltered life in a Cheshire village, and she ended up writing on her community Facebook group, "Blow the mosque up with the adults in it." She's now serving a 15-month jail sentence after appearing at Chester Crown Court. That page, the page upon which she wrote that, featured regular posts about immigration, anti-Semitic memes, and comments by Nigel Farage. Discussion had become heated after the Southport attacks and riots, with users writing things like, "This country wasn't built on Islam, there should be no mosques." So we know now the answer to the question that we asked yesterday: who radicalised these people? And part of the answer is Stephen Yaxley Lemon. I think we'll stick with that actually. Stephen Yaxley Lemon, Richard Tice, and Nigel Farage, because they all appear on the online forums that were part of the process by which these people ended up calling for hotels containing asylum seekers or mosques containing Muslims to be burnt down. Contempt for the con man, compassion for the conned, was a phrase I coined in the aftermath of Brexit, when I seemed to spend my entire life talking to people who believed things that were, to me, very easily disproved, things that were obviously untrue. But the longer it went on, the more sympathy I developed for the people who believed the stuff, and the more contempt I developed for the people who had conned them. And I think I've got space in my heart for a watered down version of that, because look, voting to leave the European Union cannot be morally compared to calling for a mosque to be burnt down. But I do think that understanding the process by which this happens would be helpful for everybody. And so that is why I come to you. What happened to your dad? 0345 6060 When I tell you of a 20-year-old woman who can't be friends with her own father, who she clearly loves, she can't be friends with her own father because of where he has been taken by this form of online radicalisation, starting with the anti-vax stuff, ending with the calls for mosques to be burnt down. When I tell you about her, about that 20-year-old woman, you think, crikey, I know exactly what she's been through. I know exactly how she feels, because I feel the same. It might be your partner, it might be your child, it might be your dad, it might be your mum, it might be your Auntie Doris, it could be anyone. The point is, the qualifying factor here is someone that you love or loved ex. It might be an ex. Maybe you still have some love for the person that they used to be. But what is it like to watch these seeds of hatred bloom in the minds of someone that you love? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. It won't be easy. But I really, really want to hear your story today. What happens? What are the signs? Where's the point of no return? Just very briefly, because this has gone on a bit longer than it should have done. Do you remember the bloke who rang me ages ago? And his wife had had enough of him being so angry all the time, and she just made him put his laptop computer away. And I remember that call. We should try and dig it out. And he just, so I stuck it under the sofa, James. I didn't go on it again. It was during the sort of EDL heyday. And within a week, he said, it had all gone. I just stopped being angry all the time. It had just ended. This was before social media was quite so all-encompassing. But what's it like if you don't put it away? What's it like to watch a person you love disappear down these sewers? And of course, I suppose you have to ask how you feel about the Pied Pipers that lead them there. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. It's 1021.
LPC.
We all know the English language is full of delightfully quirky phrases and idioms, but how well do we actually know them? Mishearing things can be a sign of early hearing loss, which is why Giles Brandreth and Specsavers have partnered to launch the Misheard Manifesto, highlighting common sayings people often mishear, like this.
The term scot-free, often misheard as scotch-free, has nothing to do with Scotland at all. The origin is the Old English word scot, S-C-O-T, meaning a tax or payment. To be scot-free simply meant exemption from this tax, and over time it's come to mean escaping any sort of punishment or obligation at all.
Specsavers believe nobody should have to settle for just okay hearing, to only catch the gist or struggle through a conversation. So book a free hearing check today. For more information and for the chance to win 2,000